So after beating Ireland last week, New Zealand move on to their next tough match of the November internationals, taking on France, a side that just beat Japan by a very comfortable margin. And in this video, we're going to be trying our best to predict what Scott Robertson will be selecting for his All Blacks team heading into this matchup. But it is myself and it is Rugbyitch. The All Blacks winning by 10 points up against Ireland. A bit of a scrappy game overall. Wet conditions didn't make for the most beautiful game of rugby, you could say. But overall, what did you take away from that contest?
Yeah, look, it was a tough match. I mean, look, both sides are incredible. So it was always going to be a close match between both of them. And I think just the All Blacks on the day were just the better side. It was one of those where Ireland just were very rusty in that game. It kind of just showed and proved how, the All Blacks having a game in hand playing against England were just far more sharp in kind of the decision making. So I think that's kind of went into their favor really, and how they kind of were able to kind of just get over the line in that game and do it with ease actually. But yeah, this game against France, it is going to be a tough one. And it's, again, they actually lost their last game against France, of course, in the opening game of the World Cup. So that's the last time these two sides faced. And that was, I think, a lot of that game France actually was pretty dominant. So New Zealand will be wanting the revenge here. And again, just going off the game, like you said, against Japan, France are in pretty good form.
And the thing is, New Zealand, since that game, their squad looks very different to what we saw for that World Cup. Whereas France, a few of those mainstays are still there. We're going to see Dupont, Thomas Ramos, some of the big forwards. Maybe not having Damien Penaud. It's going to be tricky to know whether he will be there after pulling out late up against the Japanese. But it's still going to be a massive game, a physical one. The quick backs, the flair that both these sides bring will make this one extremely entertaining. But jumping into it, front row for yourself, who do you feel Scott Robertson will select for Les Bleus?
Well, I would like to choose Ethan de Groot, but the problem is that he hasn't played in the last two games due to, I guess, disciplinary reasons, and it's just a bit of uncertainty really around him if he'll even be a part of this game or not. So I'm not going to fall for that mistake, I guess, for the second time now, and I will go with Tamati Williams to start this game alongside a sophomore at number 2 and Tyrell Lomax number 3. So I've stuck with a sophomore number 2. I think he deserves it. It was honestly his best game I've seen him play for the All Blacks, and I'd like to see him kind of continue in that role, really, because you got to think about the future. And I think, sophomore could be that one that they maybe play out, maybe that World Cup, you never know. I mean, or also even way too far ahead here. But if he continues this form, maybe, then running games, it could be good competition between him and Cody Taylor. So, yeah, that's my starting, front row.
And I guess there was that massive concern when Cody Taylor was injured, that who are they going to use next? And they showed the accuracy of lineouts for Asafo Aumua and George Bell, neither of them hugely high for the Super Rugby Pacific season. But Asafo Aumua in that game up against Ireland, in a match that certain players didn't really flourish and didn't really get to play their best game, he was extremely solid. He did everything pretty much that he needed to, and I haven't stuck with him in this game, which seems rather harsh, but I'm in the mind of Scott Robertson, and he'll be going all my Crusaders back. I'm going to get Cody Taylor back in there, so that is
get George Bauer in there.
Might as well, although you've already got Tamaiti in that number 1 jersey, of course, and so does Scott Robertson for my lineup. Cody Taylor 2, Tyrell Lomax as the number 3. If he can find a way of squeezing a Crusader or 2 in there, he'd probably do it. Plus, I think that Asafo Aumua, this game for me, told me that he will be strong enough off the bench to join in with the vision that New Zealand are currently using, which is trying to build some sort of bench that they can put out there and really thrive in the last 20 minutes. Do you not like him off the bench, Tim?
I actually think it's the opposite. This is the first time, and I've never said this before, but I honestly think what New Zealand should do is take inspiration from the Springboks and put Asafo Aumua the start and put Cody Taylor off the bench. Because the way that the Boks do it is that we can all agree Malcolm Marx is probably is the best hooker in the world in terms of what he does for his side. But they use him off the bench. There's a reason behind that. I think the All Blacks can do the same thing with Cody Taylor. I think and we've just seen from Asafo Aumua, he has definitely the capability of playing a long period of time and making a difference. Again, of course, lineup accuracy has to come be on form to kind of continue that. Because again, it was, I think, besides the opening one he had, he was excellent throughout the game. So just needs to kind of continue that. But I would like to see that. Like, the All Blacks are starting to build something here. And I'll get into it later, but I honestly think they can start to build a bench similar to the Springboks and kind of how they utilize it as well. So that's the reason why I also chose a sophomore there.
Yeah, I think the counter argument for that as well would be just looking at Cody Taylor throughout the Rugby Championship in terms of what he was able to do in the starting side, being within the top 10 metres carried of all players, the only forward in that group, the line-out accuracy. He's just, for me at the moment, he has to be somewhere in there if he's match fit. And I agree that Asafa Moore has got that bright future, but I just don't know whether or not he's got the consistency at the moment to play week in, week out up against the top sides. That's not to say that he can't get there. I just think that's a next season type of thing rather than this season with a couple games left.
I just think with the All Blacks, though, the one thing which we were all saying is that they weren't able to close games out in the Rugby Championship. They'll do better if they have someone like Cody Taylor off the bench and a sophomore to start. That's what they lacked in. They were not, like, every game they played in the Rugby Championship, it was actually a common theme, actually, that they weren't able to score a try. If you have someone like Cody Taylor off the bench, I think the percentage goes high up to the roof. Unlike if you have someone like a sophomore, who honestly I don't think is a bench player. I honestly think he's a starter. It's a tough decision here because I think you have two excellent hookers, and they're going to have to kind of deal with this. But I think they can take inspiration, like I said, off the box and put Cody Taylor at the bench. But again, we'll see how Razor goes about it because he does love his Crusaders. So you're most likely right, I guess, in your case. But I think it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see if he goes the way I've suggested or not.
And then what do they do when Samasoni Taukei'aho returns into the mix?
That's the interesting one. That's the interesting one.
I would almost say that Taukei'aho for me feels more like a bench player, doesn't he? In terms of that reserve
He's
spot
bench player.
making
Exactly.
his way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Big question marks for next year, but for now, with the squad that they've got, they haven't really utilised George Bell a huge amount. I don't see him getting to play in this game.
They should have chose Riccatelli. They should have chosen Riccatelli, man.
It's just what seems like the obvious choice, and it was,
Like, he would have actually challenged it. That's the thing, is that he would have challenged more of the hookers than George Bell. I'm not saying this, by the way, because he's a blue. I'm just saying this because he is probably the better hooker.
I think this is probably the longest discussion we've had about a front row in one of these predictions.
Exactly.
We've been going about 7 minutes
People
or so.
just get onto the locks, guys. Yeah.
Everyone's like, we don't care about the front row. Tell us the backs. But for now, we are moving on, Tim, to the locking duo. And this one, not quite the backs, but he shares the same name as one of the backs, and that is Scott Barrett. I have decided to go with at number 4. Number 5, I've gone with Tupavai. I felt like his game up against Ireland was a lot better than the first match up against the English.
Yeah.
And at the same time, that Tuipulotu impact off the bench, like we said, they're trying to build one, and I think that's something that can really help them, having Tuipulotu late, although, of course, I'd still love to see him eventually get some minutes in the starting side, but I think until they have that next big lock for them, whether that is a youngster like Holland or someone along those lines, until they get there, I think that they still want that experience.
Yeah, look, Scott Barrett, he has to be the number 4, without a doubt, because I think he had a very underrated game, Scott Barrett, because I do think we saw more of Tupavai, more in the action, and again, he had a great game, and that's, of course, and that's definitely the reason why I've chosen him, by the way, so just don't get that twisted. That is the duo that I have also chosen, Barrett and Tupavai. But I think Scott Barrett also had a very underrated game because I think he also got down, did the business, and was pretty good actually from a line-out standpoint as well. I thought that was the other thing which I said earlier on in our preview to this, kind of our team predictions, that the All Blacks have to be good from a line-out standpoint if they want to challenge the Irish, and they did that. So I was impressed by that.
So it seems like they have found quite a nice duo in that locking combination, but now we move on to the loose forwards. Last game up against Ireland, I have to say, once again, Wallace Satiti seemed to be able to step up no matter who he is playing up against, which is such a great quality to have in a young player. So I would assume that you've kept him at 6, but have you kept the other 2 in that loose forward trio, or are there some sort of switches you're willing to make?
No, I've gone with the same loose forward trio.
So since recording this video with myself and Rugbyitch, there has been an update to the All Blacks squad. Sam Cane not available, same with Mark Talia, but when we did record, it was just after the match between Scotland and South Africa, so at that time, there were no updates, so just bear that in mind when you see a couple of our selections. Now, luckily, it was only Sam Cane and Mark Talia that were impacted in these choices. So for myself, if I had to make the switch, I would actually like to do a bit of a reshuffle in my loose forward trio. Now, I haven't heard from Tim, so I'm not sure what he would do with his, but for mine, I would have Summer Penifino at number 6. I would then have Artie Savia at number 7, and then Wallace Satiti at number 8. But for now, it's just going to have no number 7 due to Sam Cane not being selected, but you'll get to hear us talk all about him in the next little while, so enjoy.
I think you just got to. And against France as well, you got to kind of stick with... I think most of the team that we saw against Ireland are probably going to play against France, so that's kind of like the thing going in my mind, and that's what I've done also with this loose forward trio, with Satiti number 6, Kane number 7, and Artie Savia up in number 8 spots. So, yeah, I think that's pretty good.
And I have gone with the same. I do have to say, though, like, it's still... I know I say this each week, and it sounds a bit repetitive, but there's still something that's not quite working in that loose forward trio. Like, they're decent,
I think I can think of it. I just...
Yeah, I wonder who it could be, you know? But hopefully they go all right here, because that's the thing. I feel like as the matches we're on in the year, we're starting to see a few more mistakes coming from that loose forward trio, and it's just one of those ones, like up against the English, I thought it was going to cost them, just because England are known for that physicality in that loose forward trio, and I feel like France are a little bit the same, you know? They might have Gregory Aldrit, they might have... I mean, there's so many that they could go with. Bodian's been getting a little bit of time, whose name I still mispronounce, even though he's been in the team for a while. But like, they have to be very careful not to get outclassed in the loose forwards, or else that is where France, like we saw up against Japan, they get over the ball, they get that turnover, and then they just rip it back and score a try. And that's the last thing that the All Blacks will be wanting. But moving on to the 19 combination, we know that there is the return of Beauden Barrett after his 2-week stand down from his head knock. Number 9, I've gone with what I feel Scott Robertson will do, and that is Cortez Ratima. Number 10, Damian McKenzie. Now, it cannot be argued that...
I'm actually surprised you went with that. I'm actually surprised you think that he'll do that. Okay.
I think that this game, like he's mentioned all throughout the Rugby Championship that he's been back in McKenzie for that 10 jersey, so I feel like this will be a little bit the same, definitely after a man-of-the-match performance up against the Irish. He was safe off the kicking
I agree,
tee.
by the way. I agree. Yeah.
And Ratima certainly was not. But I do also think that he got a little bit too much criticism for what happened throughout that game. We've got to remember, each time that he had that little bit of a fumble or waited a little bit too long, there was often an Irish player pushing up against the All Blacks forward and just causing massive disruption in that breakdown. As the match wore on, when Roygaard came on, as the Irish started to tire, we didn't see it as much. And I feel like it could have been the other way around. If Roygaard had started, we probably would have seen him have a couple, maybe not as many, because he seems to have a nice bit of composure. But I think that Ratima and McKenzie, I could see them going with this combination again, because the last thing that you want for a youngster like Cortez is to have no confidence heading out of these November internationals. And at the moment, I feel like he's feeling pretty low, so maybe a good game here up against the French would actually help boost him up, plus getting to play up against Antoine Dupont. I feel like that's one of those things
this is the other thing I was looking
it'll
at
either
too.
make or break him. And I feel like he's the type of player, if it's anything like Super Rugby, it could be the making of Cortez Ratima.
Yeah, this is what I was going to get into. I think you also have to think about your opposition, who you're facing. And I think Cortez Ratima, I don't think, like, how do I say this in a nice way? Like, I think they're very similar players in the how Dupont and I think Cortez play. But I always think you need to counteract Dupont if you want to have someone there. And I think Roygaard is the player that can do that. Saying this, do I think Razor will do that? It's questionable, because Razor has stuck with Cortez Latima for majority of the time, really, and Roygaard has only just come back into it now. So because has Roygaard started? Did he start against England?
He did start up against the Japanese.
Japanese,
but he hasn't started off the bench. So then that once again builds around, do you want a super sub off your bench? And Roygaard,
I think he'll do it.
Who can cut a game open?
I think Razor will choose Cam Roygaard, because eventually you have to choose him to start. He is your first. Like, we all recognize that he is the first choice, and why not do it against Dupont? It's a very dangerous situation, because you're doing it against Dupont, but what better time to do it than now? So that's the reason why I think Razor will go with that. And similar to you, I have gone with Damian McKenzie there. I just think off that performance, you have to go with McKenzie. Again, Beauden Barrett, I think, will be a part of this side he will be part of the side, but just I think you've got to stick with McKenzie going off of that performance.
Do you feel it's a little bit of a risk? Because I am in agreement with you as well that Roygaard would fit the mould nicer for this game. Do you think it's a bit of a risk going with a 9-10 combo that we haven't really seen too much throughout the year, although we did get to see it together briefly at the end of the Japanese game?
Yeah, I think you got to. At the end of the day, you got to try things in your first year. I keep saying this repetitively, but we're in the first year only of this cycle to the World Cup. You got to try things. So this is the time to do it. So I would like to see Roygaard and McKenzie. I think that's what Razors will eventually go with for a period of time. So just try it out, see how it goes. If it doesn't work, go back to Corti Zatzma and Bowden Barrett because that worked like a charm beforehand, or go with McKenzie and Ratzma because we've seen glimpses of that and how that can work pretty nicely.
And you're also in that situation. It may depend a little bit on who Razor goes with as the number 12, as to who that 9-10 combo could be. I feel like it's pretty well secured
not really,
at the moment.
I think that 12 and 13 is secure.
I'm thinking more so, that 10 and 12 combo. Can you have too many Barretts in that inside channel?
It's simple. You stick with Jordie Barrett and you stick with Reiko. That is 100%. We've had this argument so many times. I think
that is what they will do as well.
I think this position, guys, if you've watched a lot of these predictions, it is the one area where we could test. I normally just say stick with the same thing. Hamish is on the other end where we're like, we gotta change. I mean, to be fair, I have done that once. To be fair, with Jordie Barrett this year because he had an awful game. I can't remember. Was it against Argentina? I think it was the first or second game he had. It was one of those two games where I felt like, whoa, this is not a good performance from him. But besides that, Reiko, I feel like the two just work out together. And again, we can't think of Billy Proctor, unfortunately, because he has gone back to New Zealand for the birth of his child. So I think you have who else is in there? You have Havili and you have who else is the other one?
Is AJ Lamb with the squad at the moment? Because I've seen him kind of doing a little bit of training or something. Is he?
I would have liked to see AJ or again, I'm not trying to say players who I like a lot, but just AJ Lamb before played pretty well actually in both games. You have how am I forgetting this? Harry Plummer, who can also, of course, I've mentioned several times, he can play a 12 if need be. But I don't know if they'll do that. It's one of those where we haven't seen Plummer play a 12 in a while, to be fair. So I just say it because it's where I can see him fit in this All Black side, the most likely scenario, and how the All Blacks play. But for now, you got to stick with Jordie Barrett and Reiko. I think Reiko as well. I actually think he had a really solid game against the Irish. It's one of those where what he does so well is that he acts as like the decoy, and he allows the players in the wings to just go full throttle. And that's what the system just works so well in how they use that back line. I think Jordie Barrett, there was times where he definitely got kind of bullied in a way where they took him back slightly. I guess kind of like a welcome invitation kind of to what's to come really in Ireland. But no, it was, I think both of them had a solid game.
And I've also stuck with the same two, by the way. I've got number 12, Jordie Barrett, number 13, Rieko Ioane. It's almost too late to make any serious switch here. Against the Italians, I think we will see a change in that 12 and 13 jersey. But then the question mark is, with Billy Proctor going back, does that mean that opportunity at 13 for someone has now disappeared, and instead they might just go Ioane again up against the other Ioane and Monty? But I feel like
they could just put the two. They could put the two in.
There's the ones that make sense, and then there's what we have seen often.
What we don't want to see and what should happen.
Yeah, but of course we are not coaches. We are not qualified, unfortunately. But yeah, that Damian McKenzie, Jordie Barrett combo, I thought worked quite nicely up against the Irish at times. Of course, Jordie, he got battered around a little bit, unfortunately. That was always going to be the case. They wanted to try and put the pressure on McKenzie and Jordie Barrett, try and really shut down the rest of the All Blacks backline. But to their credit, they managed to fight through it. And at times, they managed to get around that problem. So I feel like that is a testament to that combo, perhaps, for the future of the ABs. But now we move on to the back three. Number 11, I have stuck with Caleb Clark. Number 14, I have gone with Mark Talia. Of course, Mark Talia, the other man that was taken out due to a hand injury from this All Black squad. They have replaced him with Che Fiaki for his injury cover. Out on that right wing, of course, we would not have Mark Talia, seeing as he isn't in the squad. But you might as well hear what me and Tim were going to say about Talia if he was selected for the game up against France. And then number 15, Will Jordan. Will Jordan, I thought, was really strong at times up against the Irish. And I actually, I know that this sounds like I'm just bad-mouthing Beauden Barrett, but the difference between Jordan not having to chase after those little chips and whatnot and actually get to set himself in a defensive line was night and day throughout this game. He actually got to control where he wanted to go a little bit more, whereas normally it's like Barrett just goes, oi, little chip in behind, and then he goes, it's like Will Jordan's his dog or something. But I think that the wingers, they'll still go with this combo. They don't really have that many other options other than, I guess, Sevu Reece, but I don't see them testing him up against the French. It's because Bilbari, he's still very new and no one really knows a huge amount about him. So
very solid player.
Defensively, that's going to test Mark Talia.
I was going to say, he's going to get, I don't want to say it, but I think Mark Talia may have an edge on him from when he gets the ball against him. But no, he's a very good player. No, he was actually really good throughout the Rugby World Cup. And again, he's going to continue that form to what I've seen. I mean, not a lot, but I've seen obviously the stats and all that. He's looked pretty good throughout his time in the top 14. So I think it'll be a good matchup.
Have you got the same back three?
I do. Yeah, just surprise there. I've gone with Caleb Clark number 11, Talia number 14, and then Will Jordan number 15. I think it's just what you have to go with against this French side. And again, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen this kind of back three because it's kind of new to what we saw in that opening round in that World Cup. So it'll be interesting to see how it kind of goes because with Caleb Clark as well, he won't, like you said, is Pinot available or no? Is he?
I'm not too sure what took him out late. Yeah. I assume it was sickness because or else then maybe
that's why I wasn't sure what's happening.
Research it a little bit more. We should mention we are filming this pretty much directly after South Africa versus Scotland, which does mean that we are yet to hear all the injury updates of the week and everything along those lines. But he'd be a massive hit if they weren't going to have him, similar to what we saw for Darcy Graham when he wasn't available for Scotland in the most recent game.
I want to see that happen. It'll be a good battle actually between Caleb Clark and Damon Pinot. Because Caleb Clark, to be fair, he's actually okay defensively. I think he's a pretty solid defender, but Damon Pinot is just he is lethal. He's very lethal in the same way as what Will Jordan is. So it would be a tough battle. That'd probably be the once watch battle actually in the game if he is available. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
That is our starting lineup. We've got only the 2 changes across it, so definitely a different All Blacks lineup compared to what we saw in that last head-to-head up against the French. Just the hooker and the halfback, 2 that we did decide to switch. But now we move on to the bench. So straight away, of course, you will have a different man in the number 16 jersey to myself. So who have you got in that front row?
Yeah, so for my replacement hooker, I have gone with the likes of Cody Taylor here. I just think, you just got to. There's nothing really more I can say on that front. Cody Taylor's my replacement hooker. And then, I've gone with Offating Fassi as well as Tossi there and to make up kind of that kind of front row off the bench. I think it's standard now, really, but I think it's good they're building that. They need to just kind of get more time together. And, Tunga Fassi and Tossi just did the job again against the Irish. And it would be good to see Cody Taylor just get some minutes in this game if it's either starting or off the bench. So, that's my front row trio there.
And I am pretty similar with the exception of that replacement hooker. I've got Asafa Moore there as my number 16, number 17, Ofa Tuanga Fasi, and number 18, Pasilio Tosi. I think they've actually found a really good combo in Ofa and Pasilio, and it's probably a combo that not many people actually asked for, or not really many people were actually predicting at all as something that they'd go with. It was normally, we'll put Tamaiti with Basilio because they're both really big players, or Offa if he was going to get the chance. Most people didn't actually have him in their squads, but now that he's in there, get you. Good on you.
I did.
Back in your Blues, boys. To be fair, he had a good season. Rugby.
He had a good season. This is the thing. People forget this. It's just it was so frustrating. People were like, nah, he can't be an All Black. I'm like, guys, did he just watch Super Rugby? He was probably up there in the top 3 best props. Anyway, it's besides the point. I think also Tossi as well. He only just came into his own this season as well, so he definitely wasn't kind of in the thinking. He was really good, so he'll kind of look to continue that form. And I think both of them just as a pair look really good off the bench. So Yeah, it's a good thing that the All Blacks have there.
Some people still base their opinion on Caleb Clark off like 2020. Like they just say, "Oh, I don't like Clark. He's slow. He can't defend." And then you look at him throughout Super Rugby Pacific, and then it's just the whole opposite.
It's crazy.
Some of the best tackling percentages out of pretty much any of those guys, whether it was Narawa, whether it was Reese, whether it was Talia, whether it was Ioane.
It's not even close. Like Caleb Clark is unbelievable. But I do have a question for you, and just you don't have to give me a reason why. By the way, just this is a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tough question, I know. But who's a better winger, Clark or Talia?
I thought you were about to say Clark or Lomu, and I was going to say
no. What? No. What?
Clark or Talia?
You don't have to give a reason. Just say. Just literally say.
Can I give a little bit of a reason?
No. That's the juicy bit about it. That's the juicy bit about it.
Oh,
it's close, by the way. It's very close.
Honestly, I would say Clark. Just for the roundedness of being able to defend as well as attack. Like Talia, don't get me wrong, on attack, yeah, I did give a reason, sorry. Yeah. But like Talia on attack, no one beats defenders like that man at the moment in this All Black setup.
Yeah.
But in terms of defensively, 1 or 2 seasons more and he's going to be right up there. I have to say though, with Caleb Clark, that man needs to control his arms because how many times is he going to almost either deliberately knock the ball on or get very close to it? He almost got a yellow card up against the Irish. I don't know whether you saw that one, how he kind of almost got the hand out for it. But yeah, definitely needs
That's
to
how it sounded as well, yeah.
Because had the ref mic and you just heard it from the distance. But we will move on to the rest of the forwards. I assume we've both got 5-3, by the way.
Indeed, yeah.
Okay, so I've got Patrick Tuipulotu as my number 19 and then Sama Penifino as number 20. They still don't like to give Finau too many minutes off the bench, but he is still a part of, I guess you could say, that impact squad that New Zealand is putting together. It's not really a bomb squad, is it? It's kind of like just a bit of extra. What's a cool name? In fact, that's the comment section's job for this video. Anyone who has watched this far, what would you call the All Blacks bench? The Springboks have got the bomb squad.
That would be interesting. It's not going to be as cool as the bomb squad, though. That's the problem.
No.
Just let us know in the comments, guys. Let us know in the comments what you guys think.
Yeah, hopefully someone can come up with a cool nickname that we can then steal and use on our live streams. But moving on to the back replacements for yourself, Tim. Blast 3 in the side. Who have you gone with?
Yeah, so just being clear, I did also go with Tuipulotu and Swippy Finau as well.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I kind of just...
It's all good. It's all good. It was all good. You said exactly what I was going to say, so that takes care of it. But for my scrum half and I guess the rest of them, I have, of course, in this case, gone with Cortes. That's off the bench. You can consider TJ if you want, but I just think you got to give minutes to Cortes somehow. So I want to give him off the bench here. 22. This is, of course, where I have Bowden Barrett, and then number 23, I've gone with Anton Brown. I just think it's a solid. Again, you can switch those two around if you need to, and kind of how they'll put it out as a lineup, but I think just all 3 of them can make a decent impact off the bench.
Pretty similar to yourself. I have got number 21, Cam Roigard. Now, I do actually think, in terms of your lineup with Cam Roigard starting, I think that they might even consider TJ off the bench just to have experience at the end of this game. Yes, it's not what people want, but it might not be a bad call. Definitely if Cortes is not feeling that great after the way that last week's game went, maybe you could look at that experienced head close out the contest, but I do think that Cam Roigard, if he is off the bench, I've got him here, he will have a bit of an impact. Because we've got to remember, Dupont will more than likely play 80 minutes, if not maybe about 76, is probably when they're going to make that replacement. So either way, Roigard and Ratima will both face Dupont at some stage in this match. It's just more of the question of, do they want to face him when he's fresh, or do they want to face him when he's fresh, but it's just later on in the game. Exactly, number 22... I have gone Bowden Barrett, and then number 23, Anton Lienert-Brown. Although I will say, if AJ Lamb is with the team, 23 might actually suit him quite nicely because he can play centre and he can play on the wing. So he offers you quite a few positions under his belt, but I just don't see them doing it. I think they'll go Anton Lienert-Brown as the slightly safer option. Or they could even look at David Havili if they need to.
Ruben Love.
Scott Roll. Or Ruben Love, that is true. Although who's your set? Oh, well, I mean, you've got some centre cover, don't you? The All Blacks, later on in the game, they don't mind just shuffling everyone and just whoever's in the spot is in the spot.
But you have to remember, they're playing France, so I don't expect them to make too many changes.
No. Yeah, I think safety will be key. But Nonetheless, those are our starting lineup predictions and the reserves for this upcoming game with the All Blacks versus France. Of course, do let us know who you think Scott Robertson will be going with in the comments down below. Also, be sure to check out Rugbyitch. His link will be in the description as well as the pinned comment. Leave a like on the video if you haven't already, and also hit that subscribe button. And I will see you all for the next one.